People, deluded, I'm back again. Now, I think games like Sheffield United, while we shouldn't get doom and gloom if you can be, because we knew it was going to be a struggle this season, I think games like this, in the same way when Torreira wasn't there against Leeds, games like this show, obviously tactically with players that are going to remain at this club, there's a lot to do, specifically, well, how we manage games. Tenacity is something that Arteta's installed. It kind of loses us after the 60th, 65th minute. But how we manage games is what makes the difference in winning and losing. And how we manage games needs to improve. And there's many aspects. But that being said, we need a centre-half. We need bare minimums, a centre-half and a central midfielder. But again, I'm not trying to be touchy. In the short, medium and long term, Arteta can only do so much. It's where now I'm looking at the club, because we need two centre-halves. Now, Luiz and Socrates have been in good form. And I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but their form is clouding judgment. Neither player is good enough to move forward with. We've got Saliba to come. I like Saliba, but he's a young man. He's his second year in the top flight league as a professional footballer. I think he's going to be a good defender and he needs to learn and whatnot. But we need to not get excited about the man he's going to be tomorrow and thinking what he is today. He's someone who's 18, 19, still learning, going against some very tough strikers in this league. Sergio Aguero, Harry Kane, all of these players. More time, it's not even them. It's someone that's inexperienced in a game like Sheffield United away, or against someone like Glenn Murray or Billy Sharp and these sort of players where he'll need to be exposed to this. And I think that's a big reason as to why Rob Holding isn't of the level many people think, because he's had injuries and you've got to show a reason to play you, but minutes are currency. If you're not exposed to that harsh reality, you're going to be very naive. So we need to account for that. So for me, two centre-halves needs to come in, excluding Saliba. Saliba would still be, for me, you get someone that's seriously levels, like let's just say Upamecano. Again, he's not a world-class defender. He's still naive himself. But you get Upamecano, you get a Saliba. Them two would be your guys, if short. You get a Holding. If possible, if you could get someone 25, 26, that's a bit more street smart, a bit more rough around the edges, that can be, integrated into that mix. Because although I don't really believe in, I feel Luiz will be here next season. He'll be here until his contract runs out because of the leadership aspect he seems to be getting under Arteta. But in an ideal world, him, Socrates and Mustafi wouldn't be here. And that being said, it'd be naive to lose all of that experience and just go with a young and naive defence in which Holding, Saliba, or if it was true, Upamecano's going to come into the club. You've seen links that we want to actually get Jerome Boateng on loan again, people. You've seen links again saying Jerome Boateng so we can play a £50 million bid for Upamecano. There's conflicting reports because it says we're going to do that, then it says we're gonna bid 50 million for him in this window. Whether that happens is another thing. But like I said, we probably need two central defenders. In an ideal world, I'd love two central midfielders because I love Torreira, but his skill set is never going to be something that's he can play a pass, but he's never going to be a danger in the final third. It's chalk and cheese. It's just not his thing. Xhaka's form, and I don't mind Xhaka. I do believe Xhaka should be a rotation option, but he deserves to start. He's not going to necessarily bring you... We need dynamism, tenacity and combativeness in our midfield, apart from Torreira. From not just Xhaka, no one's really going to give you that. I feel looking at our midfield, nobody's solid defensively, nobody's fluid with the passes like that. Nobody's going to get goals. Ramsey's gone, but there's no real goal scorers in our midfield. Mesut Ozil, assist king, all of this sort of stuff. He's got like one assist and no goals in 17 games. Clearly, he's not someone to build the team around long term as much as I like him. Guendouzi, I like him. He's been in poor form. Again, his skill set doesn't suggest he's going to become a goal scoring midfielder or get goals. The only one that would scream that to you is kind of Joe. Or if Ceballos was in form, because of how he plays, he might be able to get goals. But statistically, neither of them are going to return anything. So while I'm a goal scoring midfielder, is the one I can think of right now is probably Bruno Hernandez, and you're seeing 60 million. So that's a myth. In an ideal world, you sign someone that can play with Torreira, so we can do a little and large thing. Two guys that can break down, play and progress. Or you get someone like that, and you also get us not Santi Cazorla because you can't get him, but Santi's strengths. You get someone that was more like a Vieira, someone who can pass the ball forward and a bit of a physical presence in that midfield. Or if they're not rolled into one player, you go and get that Santi Cazorla sort of thing. And I really hope the club are looking at these things and seeing that a tradesman's only as good as the tools you've given him. Arteta's shown, again, the jury's still out. He's only been here for a sec, but for me, he's shown that he can do something. But he's going to need to be given players that are receptive to the information and players that are good enough. I feel these players have turned the corner of sorts because they've reacted to Arteta. But again, there's only so much Arteta can tell you. We've taken the lead in how many games under him, and the players have failed to see that out. Now, to be fair, I think it's not on Arteta. Similar to some degrees, this very thing was not on Emre, because twice against United, Emre set us up brilliant and the boys let him down. But you could say because it's 4 games, there's no smoke without fire. Arteta might be doing something wrong, but Arteta can only give these guys so many tools. When these guys are 1-0 up, what are they saying to their teammates? Are we going for a second, or are we reining it in? Not to say he was, but Martinelli, stop going forward. Saka, stop going forward. Relax. We're trying to see out this game. Or are we going to keep doing things like against Chelsea, where it was a good game, don't get me wrong, but we cheated ourselves out of a decent game result in that game based on the last 7 minutes, people. Like you saw, people are flying forward for Tammy Abraham's goal. Everybody's caught up the field. A bit of that is naivety from old and young players, but these are the sort of things the players naturally have to step out themselves. And I really hope that games like this, or the board are sitting there with the scouting teams and identifying a centre-half or two, a midfielder or two, and what other areas they need, because we're hearing Kazawa, and right now we're hearing that's going to happen in June. Who knows the future of Kolasinac? But you're clearly thinking, has Maitland-Niles' judgment, clouded judgment in relation to bringing another right back? I don't know, but we saw reports how many weeks ago that the club have concerns about Bellerin. So if you genuinely have concerns about Bellerin, I hope you're identifying someone to take over that spot. Do you see what I'm saying? Centre-half, we need to have about 10, 20 centre-half targets. We can't get mine, man. Let's get him of different profiles and things. Of course, we all want the world-class players and all of these things, and it's easy for me to sit here as a fan and say this, but where are we really? It's now time for everybody to earn their keep, because I believe in Raul Sanllehi. I was calling him Don Raul and things, but some of the names we've been linked with are not inspiring, not necessarily because of the player's ability, because of when you're reading, you might see an agent was cool with Raul Sanllehi back in the days. It just seems like we're winging it and we're bargain basement sort of thing, and I don't necessarily mind that if it works, but there's a same token of that is you get what you pay for, and sometimes if you fail to buy right, you might have to buy twice or 3 times if you don't do it correctly. And that could be the case for that centre-half, because we've been signing centre-halves for how many years now and saying the same things. Socrates and Luiz have been in good form, but why did we go for Luiz? It'd be concerned if we genuinely wanted him, in that we've put a list of targets and he's first on the list, but did we genuinely want him, in which it'd be concerning, but fair enough? Or was it a thing where Lampard and him aren't getting on, we're a London club, the age he's at, he's won everything, would he stay back in London? Let's go and try chance it, and we got it to get it. Socrates was different, because I think there was a sort of system to that. When Torreira, Socrates and Leno came in, it's just Socrates, he's been decent, but you get what you pay for sort of thing, people. And I just hope we're looking at it long term, because Aubameyang, whether he's even if he signs a new deal, you're going to need to look for another striker, people. I don't think we can afford we'd have to spend 70 to 100 million on the striker to replace Aubameyang's goals. There's Werner there right now. He scored 2 goals. He scored 2 goals for Leipzig or so. Or was it a hat trick? I can't remember. I watched that game. I'm dreaming with Werner, but I'm just saying in the sense of, if Aubameyang's leaving, have you got a list of like Werner, Martinez, this striker, that striker? Whether they'll come or not, realistic or not, is another thing, but you get the point. You've got to be looking at a cam as well. What are we going to do with midfield? Are we going to have a flat midfield 3, but we have sort of modern day creators, or are we going to still go with a pivot and a 10? Because Ozil, regardless what you say about him, just age, we are at where we're at now. If he wants to move on, he can move on. I would have tried to move him on, but I can't be the only one, or I might be crazy for this. If he's not going to be moved on, and we're not going to bring in a cam, and he's training the manager who uses him, at least until while we're paying his wages, you might as well utilise him, whether that's cup games, whether that's a rotation, whether that's a starter, you might as well, because you can't say he's on all this money, blah, 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 get him out, and then say rot in the reserves if he can't get him out of the club, because isn't that wasting more peace, people? Clearly, Ozil's a quality footballer. He's finished by his own standards now. He has regressed by his own standards now. He is not the future of this club. But he'll have my support like every player, regardless of my opinions, until they leave. But we need to be looking at create goals in midfield and creativity of everybody, because the Sabal signing hasn't worked out on loan. And Ozil's tally of 0 goals and 1 assist in 17 games this season isn't the best either. Now, let's be fair to Ozil. There's obviously been games where clearly he hasn't got a goal or assist and he's played well. There's been games he's been subbed for no reason. There's been games he probably wasn't playing 90 minutes. But equally, there's been games where he's gone missing. Ozil, I think he works harder than people give him credit for. He works and whatnot. I think it's a very English thing to just praise people for working hard, because it's a very English thing, and I feel victim of it, just exerting energy for the sake of it, and flying into challenges. That's you look at how looked at in other nations, and it's very more intelligent. Players like Berbatov, Bergkamp, Ozil, who worked hard, but it's running for a sensible sort of reason. But whatever way you shape it by that logic, Ozil does work hard, but I'm not going to praise players for working hard by the same logic. I commend you for it, but that's the bare minimum. And not listen, Ozil's been in poor form, Laka's been in poor form, so it's not just that, but we need to be looking at that. In relation to Nelson, I believe Arteta was G'ing him up before the Sheffield United game and saying he could be a good player, he just needs to awaken the force within him. Apparently, Arteta's words are, "We had an incident in training. The doctors are still deciding how long it's going to take, but it's not looking good." This is in relation to Reece Nelson and a hamstring injury. Now, hamstrings could be anything from a week to four over a month, basically. A week to over a month, and we hope it's the best. It's been a decent season for Nelson, a testing season, but it's sad because 1 minute we seem to be getting players back, people keep dropping like flies, and one area we're probably decent at least for the end of this season, is the wide options. We can run with them. But it sucks for Nelson, man, because Arteta believes in him, so do I, and he's now going to be robbed of an opportunity of just contributing in some capacity for however long he's out, people. Looking at Arsenal's last 21 games in all comps, we've won 4, drawn 11 and lost 6. I watched Upamecano's game, people, for Leipzig, and I feel he's not the defender people thinking that. He's not world class. He's a good player. He's got a lot of potential. I think he'll do well. You saw for one of the goals he set up for Leipzig, more or less, he's shown his passing ability. Wonderful. He was actually involved in 2 of the goals because he done one long range pass which led to a goal, and from a set piece he won the initial flick on or effort and kept it alive, which led to a second. He wasn't for the first goal they conceded, he wasn't to blame necessarily, but he had a part to play in that. It was just poor playing out from the back from Leipzig. I do have a bit of concerns over his athleticism. He is fairly quick, he's fairly mobile, but it's just, I can't put my hand on it, it's just a concern. Obviously, you do get a lot of time on the ball in the Bundesliga. Is his decision making improved? Because it is decent, but based on what I saw in the Under-21s Championship in France, and last season to a degree, puts a lot of pressure on teammates. I would still bring him. Listen, he's a good defender. I'm not criticising him by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just commenting literally on what I saw. Like I said, if you watch that game as well, you saw Werner was a baller as well. Pardon me, people. Some more stats as well. Arsenal have conceded 5 goals that were from deflected shots in the Premier League this season, more than any other team, which again, Maitland-Niles is turning his back for one of the goals as well, sadly, people, not to name drop him, but this is how deflections happen. Ozil's only attempted 6 shots on target all season. I know Ozil doesn't shoot, but even yesterday he needs to start shooting. His final ball was poor yesterday, but it is what it is. I guess a bit of this has to be on Arteta because he's the manager, but I think it's the players considering the context. Arsenal have dropped 7 points from winning positions since Mikel Arteta took over, more than they had in the Premier League prior to his appointment. Now, again, I guess as a manager you've got to accept some responsibility for that, but I think it's on the players because similar to Emery at times, you can tell even though I didn't necessarily agree with Emery's tactics and whatnot, but I go back to Manchester United in his first season away from home. The game plan, spot on, clearly told the players what to do, but individual mistakes letting people down. Mikel can bring people to all the water he wants, they have to drink it. It's not Arteta's fault they bottled the last 7 minutes against Chelsea, people. It is crazy. And we obviously need to work. how much are we really creating more? Because I say under Arteta, there's more final balls, there's more intent. But when you look past the fact that Emre kind of killed us from that from so long, people, and we're seeing it now, we're still not shooting enough. Because in 32 matches in competitions this season, Arsenal have had more shots than their opponents in just 12 of the games. Today, obviously, Sheffield United had one more effort on our... Well, when we played Sheffield, they had a goal more than us. And being at the game, looking at the second half, they fancied that second half because you saw Muse coming off for another striker and whatnot, people. So we need to improve how we sustain leads and just see them out and whatnot, people. We really do. Going back to Upamecano, like I said, he played on the left-hand side of the centre half. My notes on the game was I'm not sure how he would react with less time on the ball. His mobility and agility is not an issue at present, but would need to improve / area for improvement, people, which is crazy. Looking at Mikel Arteta has said the circumstances are changing daily because we keep having more and more injuries and suspensions. We are there. We are in the market. We're looking for options that could improve and give us more stability in certain areas, but it's too early to tell. Tuchel has spoken on his player who's allegedly could be coming to Arsenal, and Kurzawa. He said, we need Kurzawa. I haven't talked about leaving with him or anyone else. He's been playing well lately. A bit of that is probably in relation to Cavani's whole situation, and he's probably wassing it, really. He probably knows full well of his situation. What else have we got? Don't really want to go over the same rumours, people, but I've seen the Bruno Guimaraes rumours. Apparently, we're going to need to bid 40 million to secure his services and acquire 100% of the player's rights. Apparently, Lyon have now joined the battle with Arsenal and Benfica for this player. So we'll see how this one goes, but I'm tired of hearing that one. We'll see if that one actually gets into anything, people, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you, like me, aren't going to hold our breath on such. What else is there to speak about of any relevance? Trying to find stuff. I think I've covered all my bases that I've came to speak about, people. Let me see. Oh, Jude Bellingham scored again, just to plug him. Arsenal need to be looking at him. Should we look at Mike Dean's penalties he's awarded in relation to games from the early 2000, well, from 2000 to 2020, so from the year 2000 to 2020. In 72 games, he's given Manchester City 15, he's given Manchester United in 71 games 16, he's given Chelsea in 70 games 12, in 69 games reffing Spurs, he's given 11. Surprise, surprise, a certain team that's not in double figures for penalties. In 73 games, Mike Dean has awarded Arsenal 5 penalties. And I mean, not going to waste my time on Mike Dean because you all saw what go on for him and he just clearly just doesn't like Arsenal and has got some problem with us. But okay, cool, you do your thing, GG. So we'll not waste time on him. A player I've spoken about before, Ryan Cherki, obviously scored 2 goals against Nantes at the age of 16 in the Coupe de la France, people. And he's a player we should be looking at, as well as Bellingham and Ajax's Unova not before too long. Our ex-Arsenal coach has slammed, ex-Arsenal scout Gimandi has slammed our chase for us going after Kurzawa, really, the left-back. He said, I don't see the point for Arsenal. Would I have signed Kurzawa? No. I watched him at Monaco. I think that he is a boy who has quality, a boy who has the potential to be one of the best in his position, but sadly he's lacking in certain areas. I don't see him improving. I don't see him as a boy who has hunger to attain the highest level. For Arsenal, he does not have the profile that matches the club's project. There are youngsters who are up and coming. He's already at a certain age. I don't see the point in Arsenal signing Kurzawa. He's entitled to his own opinion, and I've spoke with a lot of friends who have said the same, and I'm sure you have. Apparently, Dijon are in negotiations with Juventus to sign ex-Arsenal striker Steffi Mavididi. The 21-year-old has been there on loan, people, and has netted twice in 16 games so far for that side. So good luck to him. And he's had quite the career, Arsenal and Juventus, at only 21 years of age. Quite decent, really and truly. Mikel Arteta, some couple words. He said, I'm very disappointed in relation to the game against Sheffield United, people. He said, I'm very disappointed. I think the performance deserved 3 points and we lost 2 points. In the Premier League, if you don't put the game to bed, then in the last 10 or 15 minutes, this type of team just need a long ball, a second ball, a set piece, and you give points away. And the players must have known that prior to the game. One bright spark, if any, was Saka, but Martinelli also. And he's such a brilliant 18-year-old, man. I mean, his movement, his consistency, the way he's on it. He will go through tough moments naturally, but he's a special player for me. Even from pre-season, a lot of you used to take the mick in my comments when I said even if he never scored the goal, he wasn't far from the crime scene, and he is a very decent young player. But he's bigged him up, and he said, he's an 18-year-old kid with all the enthusiasm, but as well, he's so brave to make decisions to threaten the opponent every time. The fact he hasn't played 90 minutes for a while, but is still in the way he went after every action is impressive. And I know he's potentially got international duty with Brazil's under-23s coming up. I hope we don't sanction that. If I was Martinelli, I'd be livid if Arsenal said you couldn't go. But from a selfish fan point of view, I don't think he should look to let him go. I'm sure I saw some comments from Lacazette saying that we are a bit naive at the moment. I'm sure Lacazette said we're naive. Yeah, here we go, people. Let me bring up these comments. In relation to Sheffield, he said, they were not very dangerous, but this match summarizes how we are this season. We are not winning the match, we are winning the match, but don't get over the line. We are quite naive at the moment. We need to be nasty and more consistent in the 90th to 93rd minute of matches, especially when we can do better than this. We have the players required. It is a shame. And everybody needs to take responsibility. You need to kill games. The strikers need to kill games. Lacazette and Ozil, the one bright spark is together with Saka, you was involved in the goal. And you put yourself, well, Lacazette more so than Ozil, you put yourselves about. But what did you lot do? Score your goals. The defenders, obviously we were shaky defensively for what led to that goal. And I agree with Lacazette, especially more so in the first half. The problem is, the frustration was we weren't penetrating and putting them under danger. The bad thing is, the good thing is they weren't doing that to us, but the bad thing is we weren't doing that to them also. So can we be surprised we shared the spoils? And we do have to stop being naive. I don't even think it's a case of being nasty. I just think it's a case of being a bit more competent, realizing, like, surely you players, like especially with Arteta now, you're doing all that action running. Surely come 60th minute when the man them are blowing because you're tired, you got to look around to your teammates and say, boy, you know, Saka, Maitland, stay back a bit now. Xhaka, Torreira, let's just hold the shape. Strikers, make sure you get back early. Let's just hold the shape. If the goal comes, we do it. The game management, and Arteta can tell these lot things until he's blue in the face, as I keep saying, people. The players have to be active thinkers. Arteta has to be a facilitator and not a teacher who holds hands. It's sad. And I was going to speak about this in another vid, but it's not really of any relevance, people. For me, one thing why we lost this is because when you're playing Sheffield, you know how they're going to sit. They're going to sit against us, people. Players had to be brave. There was no Aubameyang, so I was looking at, and I felt sorry because there was no movement. Generally, there was no movement from our team at all yesterday. There was no real movement. So the man in possession, whether it's the defenders, there's no one to pass it to because there's no movement. So naturally, everyone's going to go square passes. And it's going to go back to the keeper, and that's just going to allow them to hold their shape. And everyone's going to go backwards. It's frustrating me, but I'd rather you do that than not lose the ball. There's a lack of movement, but same way there's no bravery on the ball. Players need to get the ball, try drive, have a shot. You mess it up, so what? The ball's here. It might not be. And again, I'm not saying do it all the time and lose it, but play that over the top for the run. Martinelli did that a couple times. We're playing too safe, too passive in front, and this just allowed them to hold their shape, really. And it frustrated us, people, because it doesn't matter who is in possession in this example. What is there to do? And that's what you saw against Sheffield United on Saturday. I've got nothing more to add, so I'm going to get out of it. People, DG, I'm out. Thank you for watching and rocking as usual.